Ooh, what's happening, everybody? Welcome, one and all. Welcome, for Antifa, to another Bituation Room. Notes from once again the sunken place. I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini. Decidedly less happy. 1 week after massive Democratic and Democratic Socialist victories across the country. Um, I am so excited that you're here, that you decided to press play, that you decided to spend the next couple hours with me and my amazing guests. Olayemi Olurin is back on the show, movement lawyer and creator, host of Ole and Chill. Also, Pema Levy, who is a reporter at Mother Jones covering the Supreme Court. There is a lot to talk about when it comes to the Supreme Court that is now doing the dirty work, basically, of the autocrat that they gave total immunity to. And, technically they gave it to Biden, but that dude couldn't do anything for him. Well, he could do something for his son, which honestly, I stand Hunter. Anyway, the point is, we're going to get into everything from voting rights to, legal racial profiling to transgender rights, and also your girl Kim Davis somehow back in the news. I don't know whose girl she is, not mine, somebody's. But there is a lot to talk about, including, of course, the Democrats caving on this shutdown. So if you're here, like and share the stream right now. If you're listening as a podcast, give this podcast 5 stars. Write me a little haiku from Hakeem Jeffries. Oh, that's what we don't have, Paige. We don't have the Jeffries video. So if you can add that, that'd be tight. Or not. That's what I remembered. And we'll get into all the things. Remember, you can also get perks if you are a listener of this show, but you're like, I want more. This is not enough. You can get access to things like the Ask Me Anything, which we did last Friday. Awesome questions regarding communism. That was a fun one. Nicknames for my cat, things I like to do in my free time. Thank you to all of the patrones who sent in questions and the members over on YouTube. Also, members over on Substack, the paying ones. The paying ones, damn it. Patreon.com/Bituation Room. Get at that. Again, $2 a month you can pay, $5 a month, the price of a coffee, the price of a drink. If you are like, I can only afford $2, just go to checkout and lower the price to whatever you want. You can give me, your explicit, whatever it is. I mean, a buck will be good. At least a buck. Am I not worth at least the buck? Also, you get discounts on merchandise, our union made merch, bituationroom.com, super cute for Antifa shirts, logo shirts, tote bags. You can also get access to the American Prospect at a deep 60% off. Everyone's got to subscribe to the Prospect. You get it in your hot little hands. I write for it every single issue. Just finished this last one. So yes, thank you so much in advance for being a supporter. And last announcement, I will be live at the Ice House December 13th. That is a Saturday. Back at it, doing my show, New World Disorder. It's a stand-up show. It is a little bit of fun, a little bit of respite, and a lot of bit of righteous rage. So come see me live doing stand-up comedy. And with that, everyone get your bitch caps on, baby. This is What Are You Bitching About? Well, of course, a week ago, many people, anyone left of John McCain, Liz Cheney, I don't know, anyone, who still wants to live a dignified life and have others do the same, felt a tinge of hope. Because, of course, Zohran Mamdani became or was elected mayor of New York City. We're going to talk with Ole in a little bit about that. Also, you had massive Democratic wins across the country on policies in governorships. This was huge. And then, after reporting that Donald Trump was deeply worried about the election and how the shutdown, 40 days, 41 days strong, was affecting Republicans in polling, at the polls, all the cope coming in from the Republicans, the Democrats decided, you know what? You know what? I'm tired. I'm done. Senate Democrats, again, the most undemocratic body in this country, and the most, just littered with cowards, nothing but money and cowards. 8 Democrats, none of whom are up for reelection next year. In fact, 2 of whom are retiring, decided to give the Republicans the go ahead on a procedural vote to possibly end the government shutdown. Now, there's a couple. We're talking Angus King of Maine, Tim Kaine of Virginia, Dick Durbin of Illinois, Jackie Rosen of Nevada, John Fetterman, of course, Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, and orchestrated behind the scenes by none other than nobody's boy, Chuck Schumer. So, again, when they had all the cards, they decided to be like, this is unfair. Let me play with my cards facing you and let's end the shutdown. There's Look, there's many different reasons. I understand things are rough when it comes to air travel, that TSA agents, that air traffic controllers are not getting paid. This is like not a time to want to fly, right? You got Thanksgiving coming up, but all of that pressure, all of that annoyance, that was all falling on Republicans. And instead, Republicans who are holding out for what? Yes, to pay federal workers, yes, to respect them, but also holding out for the ACA subsidies. Again, the Affordable Care Act, which is everything but affordable, was made minimally more affordable because of the tax credits that were passed after or during the pandemic. And now those are going to be going away because of these 8 Democrats folding on the shutdown, because of the fact that all the pressure around healthcare has gone, and the fact that millions and millions and millions of Americans will not be able to afford to buy health insurance because of the exorbitant prices, the like 300% surges. The difference again between a $300, mine's going up by $300. Luckily, I've like personal, I'm like, we stopped renting this garage, now I can pay for that. But the point is, most people cannot afford $300 more a month on anything, let alone your own health care. So many people are going to be going without. But guys, don't say the Democrats weren't given something in exchange. They absolutely were. They were given a promise. They were given a promise. They were promised by Republicans that they would have a vote on the ACA. They weren't promised a positive vote, like a vote with Democrats to preserve the ACA subsidies. They were just promised a vote, which, spoiler, narrator voice, neither of those things will happen. Here is Jean Shaheen being asked by Manu Raju of CNN specifically about doing this something for nothing caving.
Thank you. Yeah. You say you're fighting on the Affordable Care Act. What do you say to your colleagues who say this isn't a fight, this is a capitulation? You're putting together, you're agreeing to a vote on a bill that it almost certainly will not become law, and you're allowing that to happen.
Well, first of all, there was, as long as the government shut down, the clear statement from Senator Thune and the Republican majority, and they control the Senate, the House, the White House, was we will not talk about health care with you. So there was no vote that we were going to get on the Affordable Care Act, premium tax credits. We have a guaranteed vote by a guaranteed date on a bill that we will write. Not that the Republicans will write, although I do think it's important for us to engage with them because we need a bipartisan bill that we know is going to get enacted to provide the relief that Americans need. And
it will not get enacted. It will not be, they will not vote on that. They do not care. They are bending over backwards to prevent 42 million Americans from eating food. And you were promised a vote. Oh, we're going to write it. We're going to write it. But then she says, we're going to write it, but we also want Republicans to help us write it. Well, which is it? Like, what? We are going to write it. It doesn't, none of it matters. This is all in your head. And notice when she said, well, so long as the shutdown was happening, they said they weren't going to talk about healthcare. They told us they wouldn't. So the same people who promised you, like, none of this makes sense unless you are a coward, unless you are a coward who is retiring in her case. Okay? This is so unforgivable. This is so ridiculous, right? They got nothing. They will get nothing. Millions of people are going to go into medical debt or die because they will not have health care. Okay? Republicans couldn't give a rat's ass about making health care more affordable. But again, neither do Democrats really, right? We know that private insurers lobby Democrats just as much as they do Republicans. And of course, this was reported from Zateo, but apparently Republicans laughing in Democrats' faces. This was from Zateo this morning. The Trump White House, 2 White House officials and 2 other Trump advisors could barely contain their giddiness when asked by Zateo about the latest instance of Democratic elite capitulating to Trump. Multiple Trump aides and allies kept gratuitously using terms such as losers and pussies as they reveled in the relief from a shutdown that even President Trump acknowledged was getting Republicans killed politically. So, again, I also take umbrage with the use of pussy. They all lack the depth and the warmth of a pussy, but here we are. That's what they're doing. They got a Hail Mary from Democrats, and it really does, you understand. It's not controlled opposition. This is just, they are the status quo. They do not fight for working people. They do not care about working people. They care about airlines who have to cut their flights. They care about Black Friday sales. Meanwhile, the people very pissed at Chuck Schumer. Let me hang on. Here we go.
What about Democrats nationwide feeling about Chuck Schumer? I think the word of the day is terrible, 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 terrible. To quote another Charles Barkley when it comes to Chuck Schumer. Look at this. Least popular Dem Senate leader ever. I looked at all of the polls going all the way back since 1985. The one who has the lowest rating among Democrats is, in fact, Chuck Schumer. Look at this. He's underwater with Democrats. His own party, he's underwater. He's at -4 points. That makes him the least popular guy for a Dem Senate leader going all the way back since the mid-1980s at least.
Well, that's not, sometimes you gotta lead from behind. Look, the other thing last I'm going to say, obviously we all hate Chuck Schumer. Did you know that Chuck Schumer could actually be ousted as Senate leader, minority leader, with a vote from Democratic senators? This is David Dayen from the American Prospect. Any Senate Democrat can offer a motion to challenge his leadership position, and it would have to get a vote within 7 days. So look, here's the thing. These 8 Senate Democrats seem to have been running cover for other Senate Democrats that didn't want to put their name or faces on this because they are up for re-election, like John Ossoff, but they also would have voted for it. So I'm not saying that they'll actually take Chuck Schumer out of leadership because, again, he's just sort of he's the errand boy. He's the one who gets all the, smoke, but they all kind of, the centrist smoke, they're all on board for it too. However, are we not calling for Bernie Sanders to try and offer a challenge to Chuck Schumer's leadership? If this were Republicans, would they not do this immediately? Just on some optics, right? You'd get, remember how Kevin McCarthy got ousted? Remember how Mike Johnson got in? Of course they would do it because they know how weak they look. So do it, Sanders. I mean, I'm not holding my breath, but just so you know, any Senate Democrat could call on Chuck Schumer could mount a challenge. So listen, call your senator. If you like your senator, if you like Elizabeth Warren, if you like Bernie, let's put a little pressure campaign. Let's go. They could step down. Anyway, it's there's so much to say. It's super disappointing. I can't believe we cannot even enjoy multiple weeks, not even a week of Tuesday's electoral victories. And yeah, it's about this time where I decide, even though I don't have any in front of me. Oh, I do. I can't take these because I will fall asleep. to pop a little Sunset Lake CBD. Guys, a sponsor of this show. Sunset Lake is a Vermont-based, vertically integrated, regeneratively farmed CBD company that grows all of its own third-party tested products. They have things like sleep gummies that I have right here that have melatonin. They have ones without melatonin, which I prefer. They have tinctures. They have salves for your aching muscles. They have coffee. They have chocolate. We love them. We love Sunset Lake CBD. They have like tinctures for pets as well. All different flavors. They're actually really good. Like, you know, when you're like, uh-oh, this gummy is good. I need to control myself. They have focus gummies, which I really love. Anyway, sunsetLakeCBD.com, coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA, for 20% off your order. And of course, there's a bunch of sales all the time, but you always get 20% off with Frantifa at checkout. That's good for multiple times. So what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for, Chuck Schumi? All right, I don't know. But you know who does? My next guest, who is a movement lawyer, an abolitionist thinker, a Webby Award-nominated creator who hosts the show Olay and Chill every Tuesday and produces regular videos on her Olurinati network where she covers pop culture, politics, and more. Please welcome Olayemi Olurin.
Hey, sis.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm here without my makeup, just here for you.
You don't need it because the blue, if you're listening, the blue is gorgeous on
my cardigan. Oh,
the cardigan.
Yeah. Like, this is my new house cardigan.
I know. I have house cardigans too, but then I have like a 3-year-old and they're like, well, now it's dirty and I can't go outside with this. Like,
that's hilarious.
Olay, we're going to get into a couple things, but firstly, what are you bitching about today?
A lot, honestly, like relentless bitching to the point where I had to be like, oh, CJ, I'm sorry. This is, I'm taking everything out on you and I'm just mad at the universe. What am I bitching about? Like, beyond the state of America, everything is on fire outside. Is there anything trivial that I care about? Ooh, not bitching, but in TikTok drama that there's no way you know, because why do I know it? There's a TikTok creator. There's a TikTok creator named Brene. Yes, there's a TikTok creator named Brene who has like millions of TikTok followers. Okay. She had an affair with this woman's husband. So it was like Brene and Tim. They were like hanging out like as friends. Like Tim was married to a different woman named Akira, and Brene was married to dude, and they're like friends as a couple. And Brene and Tim start having an affair, and they get together. And Akira, the wife, sues Brene because in North Carolina you can sue a side bitch. Yes, you can. So she sued and she won $1.7 million.
Now here's my problem with that: suing the adulteress, suing the woman, right?
No, I do have thoughts on that, because like the speech outside of the courthouse, like the lawyers giving a speech and she's standing behind there and they're like reprimanded, like, oh, we sued Brene for a horrible blah blah blah. I'm like, so what about your husband though? Like,
yeah, like it makes more sense to sue the husband versus like Brene,
right?
But okay,
I agree.
Now, the problem, here's my problem with like an influencer relationship drama, especially when there's like, you know, adultery or whatever, like cheating and shit, is it like now Brene and Tim have to be like together forever.
Right, you know what I mean? like TJ and old girl from the you know what I'm talking about? You know, the for the morning show, like the good morning, whatever they were. You know, the black guy and the white, Amy, TJ and Amy. That's what their names are.
Are you giving me an Apple TV morning show reference?
First of all, I absolutely do watch the morning show on Apple TV.
First season was good. Second season went off the fucking rails. I was like, where are we? Everything's happening. This
new season has started off a little bit slow for me, but all the other seasons, especially when Steve Carell was doing his best work on that show.
Steve Carell was kind of doing amazing. I'm not gonna
motherfucking can I curse on there? His motherfucking ass off on the morning show. First of all, let me just take a second to be like, who knew I was about to gas Steve Carell? Let me explain something, y'all. Steve Carell waited to be an old man to be finer than he's ever been in his life. You know that man who listen. Look up fuck 40-year-old virgin Steve Carell. Look up morning show Steve Carell, okay?
He has like he's got sex appeal and which is messed up because he's also like a predator in that. I mean, kind of.
Oh yeah, in the show, not real Steve Carell. Right, which also back to his acting. Steve Carell was acting his ass off because the way season 1, like they don't show you, like they don't definitively tell you that like you know that Steve is guilty, like for real, like unequivocally. They let it play out of like Steve denying it and his friends kind of acting like it's true and people being kind of hush hush, but you're not sure. And you really like Steve Carell's character, like he's super likable, so you're liking him all over the season. And then suddenly they take an episode in the past to show you that flashback of what he did. You're like, eat dads. You're a rapist. You're not just like an inappropriate workplacer. You're a rapist.
No, first of all, we got off on a Steve Carell tangent, but I will say that I've never seen a more masterful and like weirdly nuanced presentation of like the Me Too movement fallout and like a man that you're like, oh, maybe he's been wronged. Maybe I am wrong. But then it's like, oh no, he's a straight up rapist.
It was so good. The scene where what's the name of the actor that they had, like that was his friend that had also been canceled for Me Too stuff, and they're like at the house talking, like commiserating over being canceled, and then suddenly his friend starts saying something. He's like, wait a minute.
So good. Wait, okay, no, wait. The point, we were back. Okay, let's just wrap up this TikTok drama to say,
yes,
if you were an influencer, like cheat. If you're not happy and you need to cheat, I would just give just a recommendation. Don't cheat with, I'm assuming Tim's like another famous well followed.
Their TikTok, yeah, they had made themselves like a TikTok, like it was a unit. Like,
just don't do that. Don't do that, because then people are going to be like, now you have to be together forever and you have to have a million babies and you have to be like influencers and your kid have to be influencers and like we have to believe in your love forever. And like, no, these people are trash.
And they all hate them. No, it's sad. And there's so much videos, so much drama, because they're not like TikTok. They're not like like she has millions of followers, but they're not like creators who are like creating content. Like they come across like every day. You can tell these are regular people, sure. But they've forgotten that she's getting this following, I guess, from being likable. But that was done off of having the affair. And now there's just like a bunch of people devoted to it's so interesting because they're like they're a North Carolina couple, and you have people go into the courthouse to record their drama like for TikTok.
God, the internet was a mistake. Olay, because we're gonna get into something I haven't gotten into, which is Nicki Minaj and a little Cardi B, because in this house we stand Cardi B. But I first want to do a little breather because you're in New York. You are famous, infamous, well-known for, I mean, just filleting Eric Adams on The Breakfast Club and on your video streams, and really taking him to task, especially when it comes to the over-policing of New Yorkers and all of this. And so, like, I need your reacts to Zohran Mamdani being mayor-elect. Eric Adams, no joke, is on his way to Israel, by the way.
Right now? That's what he's doing?
Like in the next week or something. Just give me New Yorker top line reacts to what this means for the city, and what you hope to see maybe under Zohran Mamdani.
It's amazing. I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like I don't know what to say other than just glee, like, oh, smiles. Everyone's like, oh, I want your thoughts, I want your reaction. I'm like, I have nothing substantive, deep, or long to say other than I could not be happier. Like, I couldn't be happier. And as I told the Vanguard, I would be happy if he can get a fraction. If Zohran Mamdani can get a fraction of the things that he wants to do done, that will be so much more than we have gotten out of the rest of these mayors. And I will be very happy with that. I will be delighted just to see NYPD stop getting historic new deals, right? Like like I will be excited not to see my mayor putting on NYPD vests to go with them to like act like, my Lord, the foolishness that we have experienced. I'll be happy to see somebody not violating the Constitution and having stop and frisk running around our communities. I'll be happy to see somebody who let me say this about Zohran. He's genuinely impressive. And I say that as somebody who didn't just go like, oh, You seem great. I love you. I'm getting real behind you. I was somebody who really I liked Brad Lander, like as a comptroller. Like if you're in New York City, you know what Brad has done. A lot of the things, a lot of the information that I was able to check Eric Adams on in that Breakfast Club interview came from me from Brad Lander's reports as comptroller in New York City. So Brad Lander is somebody who has like a demonstrated record that I really liked, and I really liked him. So I was very inclined to be full steam ahead, Brad. And I love me some Brad, and I love what they did in terms of cross endorsing, and he was my second on my slate. But when I interviewed Zohran and I asked him all the things and I talked to him, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is the guy. This is the guy. I can't deny that this is the guy. So yeah, I love Zohran. I am so excited. I think he ran a campaign that was out of this world. I do think what I will say is a substantive thing I will say, and I hope people take away. We should be singing the Working Families Party's praises. That's who I think we should be talking about and who the national conversation should be about. Like, I think it's nice to have the conversation about, you know, what Zohran's win means and whether or not it could mean something bigger for the Democratic Party at large and the rest of the country. But that's neither here nor there for me. What I do know definitively is that the Working Families Party has been doing what needs to be done. Okay, we should be talking about Maurice Mitchell and the work they have been doing, because those motherfuckers have been getting the people we really need elected. So shout out to them. Okay,
we just had Maurice on Thursday to talk about everything. I mean, and I think, yeah, no, he's amazing. And I do think that, like, going hand in hand, Working Families, DSA, pick your poison. And I'm excited. I'm going to talk to some folks from the DSA National Committee as well. But like, yeah, it is I was dubious. When they were like, we're going to, what is it? Don't rank evil Andrew, like Dream or whatever. And we're going to all work together. But because I was like, oh man, I don't know. There's so many candidates.
No, can you really perfect? It ate that shit up.
Right. And I was like, okay, no, they actually crushed this, and they were able to do the work to get that done and to make, like you just said, make things like the Lander co-endorsement possible. So that is great. I want to ask you though, because we had Chris Robbins of Hellgate on 2 weeks ago. Your thoughts, we can talk about freezing the rent. We can talk about universal childcare, all that. But I do think, given, your work and some of the most glaring problems with Eric Adams and just where we are in the national conversation, we have to talk about policing. So thoughts on keeping Jessica Tisch as police commissioner? Chris Robbins seemed to think that it looks like a move that, de Blasio made as well, keeping the former police commissioner on, I can't remember their name, and that kind of bit him in the ass, especially as BLM popped off. What do you think about all that?
So this is what I'll say. I'm generally hesitant to believe that you should keep on anybody from Eric Adams' administration. You know what I mean? I'm hesitant to think that is the move. However, I think I'll wait. I think I'm gonna hold. You know what I'd be like? I'm gonna reserve. I'll make a ruling on this later. I'm gonna see. Because I have faith, honestly, thus far. I'm going to go based on precedent, and Zohran Mamdani thus far has shown me that he knows how to run a hell of a fucking campaign, and that he takes things seriously, and that he has a good and sensible team around him. And I saw he just unveiled his transition team of all women that seem to be sensible people who know what they're doing. So I'm going to give it a second and see, because I'm going to trust that there's some reasoning and logic behind the scenes that the people who are paying more attention, these people, know than me. I'll see. I'm inclined to think if it was me, I'd clear house. But I didn't run no amazing campaign, and I'm not surrounded by a bunch of, you know what I mean, serious advisors. So I will reserve judgment on it for now. I'm gonna trust his judgment for now. Now, if he starts reviving NYPD defunct units for brutality, then Zohran, we gotta talk. But until then, I'll relax on him. I'll see.
I think that's very fair. And he also had two big appointments, deputy mayor, who was actually deputy mayor under de Blasio, Dean Foulahan, who is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, who's 74 years old, top aide, L. Biscard Church. I think that's a chief of staff, I believe. Yeah, so and she's, like, a lot younger and I think ran his campaign, and had never done anything like that. So, yeah, you gotta elevate someone who just handed you this incredible win. So it seems like there's a lot of n he's mixed. It's a mix. There's fresh
Yeah.
energy, there's new energy, there's old, sorta, like, time tested. I did, before we move on, wanna say that the mainstream news is still freaking out. Still, like, Washington Post had to come out with an editorial, op-ed piece, an editorial that just says Zohran Mamdani drops the mask. Mind you, we're
Generalissimo.
4 days.
Generalissimo.
A new era of class warfare has begun in New York. No one is more excited than Generalissimo Zohran Mamdani. Like, what are we doing? Did Andrew Cuomo write this shit? Witness the mayor-elect's change of character since his Tuesday election victory. They go on.
Editorial board.
Yep, the whole editorial so, I mean, it's basically Bezos and his wife or whatever. Such crass appeals have real support in New York, where overpriced housing is a real problem. But it's important to recognize that high rents are a function of too much government rather than too little. Temporary relief because of rent freeze he promises for 2 million housing units will inevitably lead to less investment, driving up costs in the long run. Yes, nobody's invested in housing in New York. It's the least profitable thing you could possibly be invested in. They
I think
continue. They all basically were like, his speech was mean. They
I
think
love, first of all, his speech was phenomenal. Oh my God. Oh my God. Immigrants run the city, pump it into my fucking veins. Let's go. Oh, he said it. I swear to you, me and CJ were in the house like, oh. Oh, I fucking love this speech. The speech was so good that I couldn't listen to it in one sitting. Like, it was too much energy.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I had to break it up. Like, give me a little bit before I fucking crash out.
I was like filming, everyone's just like wiping away tears. But
No,
again,
it was good as fuck. It was, that ate, like that ate on so many levels. I loved it. Okay, immigrants run the city. Oh, immigrants built this city. Now we run the city. Oh,
it was so good. But again, if you're a white billionaire, that sounds hostile to you. Fairness sounds hostile to people with power and privilege. And so it's just crazy that, like, what's so obnoxious is that people still read the Washington Post. They read the New York Times. It says Mamdani. This is not the editorial board, thank God. This is Biniam Applebaum who wrote, Mamdani isn't the future of the Democrats. This guy is. Who's this guy?
that guy?
Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, because he embraces his centrism. Here they go. They go to the party has marginalized itself so thoroughly that even Mr. Trump's unpopular presidency isn't doing much to make Democrats more popular. Everything Democrats want to accomplish is downstream from figuring out how to persuade voters, like people in places like Pennsylvania. He goes, Mr. Shapiro's version of the Democratic Party is more patriotic than the GOP and in some senses more conservative. Ugh. It's a party that wants to improve public institutions rather than blowing them to smithereens and carrying forward the basic elements of the American experience. Blah, blah, blah. It's just a glaze piece. And where does he say he's basically like the centrism of Josh Shapiro, guy who didn't he refuse to be Kamala Harris's running mate because he was like,
no, he wanted Josh. No, he wanted to be. They chose Josh wanted to be, and she would have wanted Josh in a different line, but they thought Waltz would, be more appreciated than.
But I thought the intel on that, I thought like the last word was like Josh like kind of rolled in there like yes, like way too cocky, way too like, this is how's it going to be about me? Like that was what
I could see that. I read the book, and it seems like in a different line, her first choice would have been Pete Buttigieg, but she knew she couldn't do that, and that's who she would have really wanted. And Josh was it was between Josh and Waltz, you know what I mean? And they decided like Waltz was the move, which he was,
Yeah, and then they put the tightest leash on him possible. But just this kind of stuff is still happening. These kind of editorials, this like, no. And look,
I think it's good. You know why I think it's good that it's happening? Because the media and these places have been awful for so many years. As somebody who like writes places and stuff, they never accept anything from progressive voices. They put the fucking belt around you, everything. You can't say shit. They don't want to hear it. They make it impossible. And so I think it's nice to see these places. Like, we're at a time, and I think we're at a time now in America where you're seeing these places very clearly, and the prestige is dripping away from them. You don't see, when you see that, you see what the Washington Post really is. You see what the New York Times really is. You see what these places, and I think what you're going to see from watching MSNBC, all these different places, Claire House just capitulate to Trump, will not engage in any semblance of honest media. While it is unfortunate that it comes at the expense of people hearing the truth, it comes at the expense of people losing their jobs. What is forced, like being forced to happen, is that people are having to go independent. They're having to go independent to do the jobs, and you have to go independent to hear anything truthful. So I think when you see this bullshit, like, the reality is this: they can talk all that they want. Zohran had a fucking blowout win. So the majority of people saw sense, not just the leftists, not just the Gen Z, not just no, every fucking body. Okay, so everybody saw it clearly. So if you want to be out there on the island by your own, cope. And we know what it is. And so all you're doing is, there are a bunch of people paying attention right now. A bunch of people voted for Zohran, and a bunch of people are rooting for him across the country. So all those people are looking and are able to see when they maybe typically wouldn't. When those kinds of outlets are running their bullshit propaganda, you might miss it, but you see it now. And I think that that's good that people see what's happening, because I think you'll never see these kind of outlets have the kind of prestige and esteem and voice that they had. Like, the New York Times endorsement will mean less eventually. The Washington Post endorsement and shit will mean less. So I say good. Keep talking shit and lose your credibility, and let's change the times where we respect independent media more.
I love that take. I support that take. I mean, look, this is a time when like a bunch of writers are boycotting New York Times. Miss Rachel was like, who, of course, again, in this house we support, was like, everyone, cancel your subscription to the New York Times. They're terrible on Gaza. And, they're not allowed to say words like slaughter to describe what is a slaughter.
Yeah.
Let's move on, because I'm so happy I can talk about this with somebody, and someone like yourself, Olay, because on, Olay and Chill and Olurinati, and on your channel, you do not shy away from talking about pop culture, which I love. And I think, we need to hear about Steve Carell's glow up. We need to hear about the act. And we need to talk about, in my opinion, a little rat beef that's been happening for some months now, which is between Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. And the news is that Nicki Minaj has effectively outed herself as MAGA.
Yeah.
She quote tweeted a Truth Social post about Donald Trump, upset at all the Christians facing, quote, existential threat in Nigeria. Remember, he wants to go to war on Nigeria because of this. He's saying radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. This is just like straight out of Laura Loomer's, whatever. She drafted this shit for him. And then after, she gives him the handy, he presses send. So, and Nicki tweets it. Reading this made me feel a deep sense of gratitude. We live in a country where we can freely worship God. What? No group, yes, of course, the right God, though. No group should ever be persecuted for practicing their religion. We don't have to share the same beliefs in order for us to respect each other. Numerous countries around the world are being affected by this horror, and it's dangerous to pretend we don't notice. Thank you to the president and his team for taking this seriously. God bless every persecuted Christian. Let's remember to lift them up in prayer. And that got her Mike Waltz saying, thank you for using your platform to speak out on the defense of Christians being persecuted in Nigeria. If you ever find yourself in New York, come by the U.S. Embassy to the United Nations. I would love to speak to you in more depth about what our administration is doing to protect Christians' freedom all over the world. Nicki Minaj, I'd be honored. Thank you, Ambassador. I mean, Olay, I feel like Nicki Minaj broadly, given her history and what she does, has given MAGA vibes for a very long time. She is also was a anti-vaxxer. She's a lot of shit with mostly women, mostly female rappers, mostly people who, basically just women who are succeeding. And this just feels, it's time to talk about it because I have been stewing on this, following the drama, especially between her and Cardi B, because as Cardi comes out with a new album, Nicki's all over it, talking so much shit,
She's so
freaking
sad.
out about it. And like, I'm just like, the Barbs have MAGA vibes and they've always had MAGA vibes. Give me your thoughts.
Okay, let me see where I start.
There's a lot.
We need to treat Nicki Minaj the same way that we treat Kanye West. Like they are the same. Nothing is different about their conduct. Like they are the same. I think they are the same level of sane. I think they are the same level of crash out. I think they are the same in their politics. I think that they are the same. Okay.
Yeah. So you think she's, I mean, he's bipolar. He's bipolar.
Yeah. But he knows exactly what the fuck he's on. When they here's the thing. Well, this is what I'm gonna say about Nicki Minaj. And I say this, let me be clear about this, because the Barbs who live in a world where they act like everybody is just set up to be a Nicki Minaj hater. People are just plotting against her. No. I hate Nicki Minaj, but I did not always hate Nicki Minaj.
Ooh, okay.
I started off a Nicki Minaj fan like everybody else, okay? In high school, that was my bitch. I remember when Nicki first dropped the Massive Attack video. That's how long I've been a Nicki fan. I had Nicki on the wall, all this in the next thing, right? Like, so that is not, like, Nicki is somebody I have watched show her ass and show us her true colors time and time again over more than a decade now. It's not just what people don't understand. It's not just Cardi. It's not just Meg. It's any and every woman that gets even the slightest bit of attention. Like Nicki Minaj is the clearest definition of it's internalized misogyny. She hates other women. She feels she doesn't want to see them successful. And I think it's a result of the time Nicki came up. Nicki came up in a time in rap where there were just oftentimes there'd be one woman of an all-male collective where they're picked and it's going to be you. You're going to be the first lady of G Unit. You're going to be the first lady of Young Money. You're going to be the first lady of this. And now this is a time period where we have female after female rapper after female rapper. And I think the way she hates Cardi B is Cardi B opened the door for all these women to like kind of storm rap. So if she hated Cardi already, this extra. So I think that
I like that because she wasn't that. She wasn't that.
She's aspirational. I think Ice Spice said that in an interview she had with Keke Palmer. She said is that Nicki Minaj was aspirational, but it didn't make you feel like you can do this. But Cardi B is the first person that made a lot of other women rappers think that they can do it. And Cardi's also been somebody who's uplifted a lot of female rappers. She collabs with female rappers. She's always working with female rappers. Nicki, no. And if Nicki worked with a woman, they have fallen out 2 seconds later. Now, right. I say all that to say, there's one thing with Nicki's general like level of just blind nastiness and hatred that you see she experiences towards all these other female rappers and everybody, and not just them. It's on the Sizzle, it's TDE, it's all of Rock Nation, it's Jay-Z, it's everybody. I think Nicki is legitimately a little unwell, and I want to be clear. I want to be clear. And me comparing it to Kanye is not saying they have the same mental illness and they both are not in control of what they're doing. I think Kanye has bipolar disorder, but I think that is separate and apart. I don't think that is why, like, I don't mean this to, I want to be clear that I'm not feeding into like bipolar stigma or anything like this. I don't think this is a matter of Nicki Minaj not being her right faculties. I mean, there's a way that they choose to conduct themselves. You listen to Kanye.
That's why I think I'm a little more sympathetic to Kanye, if anything, but even then you're just like, yeah, but people with bipolar don't go making songs called Heil Hitler, you know?
Exactly. There's a difference. That's what I'm saying. These things your diagnosis in these things might contribute to a way that you act or whatever, but how his views, the things that he's choosing to say, do, and argue, that's and it's strategic. You see when Kanye chooses to do things, when he stops doing these things, who he chooses to go after. So I don't believe at all that these people are unaware of what they're doing. Because again, just like like, and of course, people have said it 100 times. And of course, Nicki Minaj going after everybody, including all the Rock Nation, Jay-Z. She refused to say Beyonce name. She missed and said it one time, deleted the tweet immediately. So these people are
my favorite thing about Nicki is that she also, like, someone pointed out in my, like, rabbit hole phases, like, that she always, like, praises, like, white artists. And then, of course, Taylor Swift comes out with a new album. She's like, yes, queen, get it. It's so good, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what?
Because that doesn't feel like a threat to her. That's what that is. But yeah, Nicki is so fucked up in so many ways, but this is like her. I'm honestly glad she did this. And so, like, I feel like the more mainstream got to see it, because a lot of Nicki's antics and the, like, prejudice and crazy things that she be saying and doing doesn't get reported on. Nicki, from the other day when she was beefing with for no reason, taking shots at TDE and SZA and everybody and their mother, all of a sudden, as creators start commenting on her crash outs online, she's tagging, she's talking about, I'm calling the FBI. I was threatened when no one threatened her. She's engaging with these Republican candidates.
Yeah, she's like adding, who did she like add ICE and shit, like trying to get them to, storm people's homes, as if ICE is not already storming people's homes and are very amenable to you just tagging them and tweeting at them.
Tweeting on one breath, she's using her husband. Her husband is like an attack dog to threaten people, like, oh, I'm a criminal, I got zoo, da 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 da. That's in the next thing. And in the next breath, she's tagging FBI and she's tweeting at Republican politicians for help and whatnot. So Nicki has made it clear that Nicki's an idiot. I don't even know what else to tell people. Nicki's an idiot. Y'all saw her she's an anti-vaxxer. She buddy up with all the Republicans. She's like, there's no reason why in this climate, in this administration. First of all, I think Mike Figueredo on the Humanist Report has a great video about Nicki Minaj and this foolishness with Nigeria, where he goes into like what's actually happening, and that it's not, but like some bullshit is happening in Nigeria, but it's not this assault and this war on Christians like Donald Trump is intentionally trying to position it as, or anything that Nicki Minaj is talking about. So I think that's a great video you should watch if you want more information on that. But Nicki's old stupid ass, like, what would possess you to do something like? It's because that's what she is. She's a Trumper. That's who she believes in all this nonsense. Nicki is. Look
at her adding the FBI. I don't know who MacWab is. MacWab of TDE reacts to the recent online clash between Nicki. Nicki, relax before you get put in the blender like your boy did.
Which is in no way. She is a black person and a rapper. She knows that is a no way a threat. She knows what that meant. Before you lose another fucking rap beef like your boy, and she knows that, but yet you see what kind of she's an informant.
She's then asking the FBI if it's a threat, and then of course Kash Patel's like, yes, it is a threat. It absolutely is. It's like Antifa. MacWap is Antifa.
Like, oh, it is ridiculous.
He didn't respond, but I'm just saying, like, they are, because there's also MAGA super clout chasey. They want celebrities. Like, there's a reason that a friggin' ambassador is responding to her, because they have Vanilla Ice come out and do Ice Ice Baby every year at Mar-a-Lago. They need their celebrities. So it's just very funny. And I would say she's arguably one of the biggest MAGA celebrities to out themselves, as MAGA. So it's not irrelevant.
Yeah. No, and it's not. And it I think what makes it really important is that Nicki Minaj has one of the most notoriously like loyal and crazy like stans, like fan bases, who are incredibly impressionable in these young kids and do whatever kind of nonsense, bend over backwards to defend her. So I think it's really problematic, right? How they way worse than the Beehive. The Beehive would never support Beyonce on no book. What? Well, never in this life don't you compare them to the Hive. Like
no. Sorry. I didn't mean Beehive. I meant the K Hive. My bad.
Oh yes, I'm like, the Barbs are a special insane. But yeah, but even the Barbs, I say all that to say, even the Barbs, I've seen her like blocking Barbs and cussing Barbs out, because Barbs have been like, whoa now. Like, all the things, come on, Nicki, read the room, like, not during this time period, especially because, and Mike points this out in his videos, like, a lot of Nicki Minaj's audience, and the Barbs who were commenting on this is like, you have a large gay fan base, you have a large queer fan base, and for you to be out here defending, like, or being given unnecessary props and bullshit to Donald Trump and his administration, like, lady, be serious.
Yeah.
Be serious.
Well, I'm glad I was proven right. It's just they don't have a lot of people to talk about this with, and I think it's important. And so thank you, Ole, for going there with me. Olayemi Olurin, where can people find you, follow your work, watch your essays and your shows?
You can subscribe to my main YouTube channel, Olurinati, for my video essays. You can subscribe to Olurinati Pop for my like pop like movies and TV shows, video essays. You can subscribe to either Olay and Friends for my podcast. New
God damn, how many channels?
7.
What?
Yes, I have a whole Olurinati verse. Okay.
She's got her own network. This is
yes. Somebody in the chat said, "I love you, Olay. Please notice me." I've noticed you. I love you too. Thank you, Bew. I have Olay and Chill that puts out new episodes every Tuesday at 1:00, and I have Olurinati Politics, and I have Olurinati Bites for my shorter takes, and I have Olurinati Music for my album reviews.
God damn.
Thank you.
Where can people do you have a Patreon? Where can people support
I have a Patreon for Olurinati Pop as a Patreon. We put out all the uncensored version of all the content there, and we have memberships for Olurinati, Olay and Friends, and Olay and Chill. Okay. And you can obviously follow me on Instagram or Blue Sky at Olurinati.
Okay, love it. Olay, so good to see you and talk to you as always. Take care.
Thanks.
And Rachel Atwood, thank you for your super chat. Says RP Teen Vogue, Olay and Company provided such fire there. Yeah, what a shame. It's so, I mean, it's like, you know, from time to time, my mom's like, can you get a regular job in media? And I'm like, if you can find one, I'd love one. Where are those jobs? My next guest has one of those jobs. Damn it. No, I'm so excited to bring her on for the first time. A reporter at Mother Jones, covering political issues and the Supreme Court. Before joining the staff of Mother Jones, she was the Washington correspondent for Newsweek. Please welcome Pema Levy. Pema, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. I hope, I hope you were, I don't know how much Nicki Minaj you wanted to dive into right off the top, as she tags SCOTUS in her tweets. No, but I'm so excited to have you on because there is just so much happening when it comes to the Supreme Court, and that has everything to do with our rights being, slipping away every single day. And I want to ask you first, we've seen this term shadow docket be thrown around, and that the Supreme Court is like working on their shadow docket. What the hell is a shadow docket for the layman out here?
Yeah, it's a great question because as someone who covers the Supreme Court, I'm sort of in this weird world where like there's the quote unquote normal docket, the so-called merits docket, and all the reporters are used to following that, right? This is just the court says, people appeal to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court goes, okay, we'll take that case, file all your briefs. Okay, we're going to have oral arguments. We're going to think about this for a while, and then we'll put out this written opinion that lays out all of our reasoning. And if you dissent, you can dissent. And that's like what we think the court does. That's the merits docket. That's right. Regular docket. Okay. So now there's also something called the emergency docket or shadow docket. And it's been there for a long time. And it's basically a way for the court to deal with emergency appeals. Once upon a time, this was, I think, mostly used for things like death penalty appeals, where someone was like, they're going to kill me tomorrow, but I have this appeal, right? Like, I think that they're going to do it in an inhumane way, or I think that, the prosecutor is biased, right? Give me more time, right? Yeah. So there's sort of an emergency, like someone's about to die, and then they can step in and say like, okay, we're going to stop this, right? And they don't have time to write an opinion. They don't have time to, hear oral arguments. They're just going to say, yeah, don't kill that person yet. Or as is often the case, go ahead and kill that person.
Right.
That happens a lot too. Okay. But now the shadow docket has basically taken over the court, and in particular under this administration, because the Trump administration's losing constantly in the lower courts, and they deem this an emergency. And so they run to the Supreme Court and they say, please stop these lower courts from stopping my order. And so
from doing law.
Right. And so then the Supreme Court keeps coming in and saying, yes, we're going to put those lower court orders on hold. Go ahead and do your thing, even when it's illegal or unconstitutional. And and you can just keep doing that while your case makes its way through the courts. So that's the shadow docket. And that's where so much of the action is right now, because the Trump administration is constantly running to the court saying, hey, let us keep doing this. Let us keep doing that. Let us fire this person. Let us racially profile these people.
Yes. And so it's like a temporary ruling almost. It's still going to work its way, or
yeah. So
eventually.
Right. So the lower courts haven't fully decided the case, right? So like a lower court gets a case and they're going, as for example, there was just, I think we're going to talk about this probably, but there was just this case about what sex you can mark on your passport, right? And so the lower court said, okay, I haven't made a full final ruling, but looking at the situation, I think that the transgender plaintiffs are likely to win and they're going to suffer more harm. So I'm going to just stop this policy while I consider the case. So that moves up to the Supreme Court, because the Trump administration says even pausing
it's an emergency
is a huge emergency, and we have to, the Supreme Court has to come to our rescue. So it's basically like the Trump rescue docket now.
That's insane. People are putting the gender that they desire, that fits with their identity, on their passports. This is an emergency. You must stop this. That is wild. Let's just talk about that then. The Supreme Court handed him this, I guess, victory against trans people, and non-binary people. You have to now put your sex at birth on your passport. We know this is obviously in kind of the wake of all these stories of trans people and non-binary people getting their passports taken from them or ripped up, or issued new passports that give them a gender that is not their gender. And so, yeah, I mean, this is so petty and so insane, and in my opinion, so unconstitutional, but whatever. It's so discriminatory. They're also going to rule, the Supreme Court, on whether trans athletes can participate in sports, right? Whether the 14th Amendment protects them or not. Can you just give me your sense on, again, this is this pet issue of the right that they ran on, and now they're delivering for the bigots out there, in my opinion. What do you think about the trans athletes? And like, for me, I'm like, how in the hell are they going to justify this level of discrimination under the 14th Amendment, under Title IX? There's so many protections for trans athletes. Do they really want this fight on the Supreme Court level? But give me your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think really quickly, going back to the passport case, I do just want to touch on this, because I think this case, it has so many elements of what is happening at this point between the Trump administration and the Supreme Court, which is that it has it's a discriminatory policy, right? There's no sense to it besides discrimination, because an identity document should reflect the identity that you see. Otherwise, it's confusing. The whole point of the document is that you can identify someone. If it says male, but you're presenting as female, that's confusing. And that leads to invasive searches and missing your flights and interrogations and real harms, right?
Yes.
There's a real harm there. So also, emergency, right? This other issue. Oh, it's an emergency that we can't do this. Well, this has been the policy of the United States for 33 years. Right? Because it made sense. You want the document to reflect what the, customs agent or TSA or whoever is looking at you sees. Yeah. So it is just not an emergency. And secondly, the Trump administration can't really demonstrate that it's harmed, except in this sort of abstract way of it's harmful that we don't get to do whatever we want exactly when we want. Right? And so the court basically says, one, we don't really think that harm to transgender people is real. We won't even consider that.
Yep.
2, it's definitely an emergency, even though there's no evidence that's an emergency. And 3, obviously this is discriminatory, but we're not even going to consider the fact that it's discriminatory. And so I think that these 3 pieces are just come up again and again and again, right? Which is the only harms we're going to care about are this sort of abstract harm to the president, and specifically this president. Yep. They didn't really act this way around Biden. Um,
Nope.
it's
I mean,
been-
Biden didn't really require it, but he could have at the end there, but he didn't. But yeah,
yeah, so I would say that I think for the athletes case, so this case hasn't been argued yet, so I haven't had the benefit of listening to them during oral arguments. But this case is, or sorry, this court is really on a roll when it comes to rolling back LGBTQ rights and particularly trans rights. I mean, they just, I think several of the justices just don't even seem to really feel like transgender people exist, that it's that it's a real thing. That this is right. And so they're just, you know, I don't know how they're going to justify it. I mean, maybe you know, the real discrimination is against the girls who might lose.
exactly.
Right?
The
Like,
Riley
maybe that's
Gaines
the
who
real
will
discrimination
tie
here.
for 5th or whatever the hell. I mean, yeah, I mean, and I think because of, I mean, the passport stuff is like the beginning, and it obviously starts. This is not small, but it starts seemingly small. And again, we've sort of talked about the way that the rolling back of rights for trans people is a permission structure to roll back rights for all people. And I think that, you know, based on what you just said, yeah, the right and the Christian nationalists and those in the Supreme Court don't believe that trans people should exist, and this is sort of their way of eliminating them legally, eliminating them as a concept, as an idea. And it's like, you know, no, you should go back into the shadows. We don't recognize you. We don't think you should exist. And these are people who like believe in conversion therapy and shit like that.
Well, and there is literally a case about conversion therapy in front of the justices, and it looks like they're going to say, go ahead, choose conversion therapy. You know, that case was already argued in October, and
they have not decided, but it
hasn't been
sounds like
decided, no. But my reading of that is that they are going to overturn state laws that restrict conversion therapy for, I think, specifically for minors, and tell therapists that they can go ahead, at least in.
But they're anti-child. I mean, this is the right
talk therapy.
I mean, this is just amazing. Like, this is the right that, like, you know, protect children. Please send them to camps or, you know, with people who will make them feel awful and probably victimize them for who they are. I sticking on LGBTQ plus rights. There was sort of a win, which was Supreme Court not hearing an appeal from, is it an appeal from Kim Davis to try to revisit same-sex marriage again? The Kentucky clerk, county clerk who refused to, well, number one, ever get a glow up or change her hair, but also refused to, you know, certify a same-sex marriage. And now she has to pay $360,000 in damages to one of the couples, which is amazing. But just give me, maybe that was good. Good. They didn't revisit same-sex marriage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that even though this court is on, like I said, like a strong trajectory of rolling back LGBTQ rights, and particularly rights for trans people, this was not a good case for them. I think that, to be honest, like legal observers who were watching this case just never thought that the justices were going to take it. And the reasons are kind of complicated. The case didn't come in like a direct posture about Obergefell, and there were questions about like her ability to bring this up. And so it was just not a good, like what the nerds refer to as like a vehicle, right?
Sure.
For this. So I wouldn't say that like these justices are never going to reconsider Obergefell. I think it was like if they want to do it, this is not the case they want to do it. And I would say because that was such a recent landmark, like they probably don't want to get to it right now. I think that there are other ways that they can sort of chip away at LGBTQ rights. And if that is building toward ultimately repealing Obergefell or not, there are ways that they can make sure that LGBTQ people are second-class citizens, even if they can get married.
Well, and one of those things I was going to ask you about, because I'd forgotten, you know, that they ruled 2 years ago that effectively a web designer who was asked, who again, was basically like an astroturfed case, as many of these cases are, like a, anti-gay astroturf case, but a web designer who wasn't really a web designer, who was asked but wasn't really asked to make a website for a same-sex couple, a wedding. They ruled in her favor that she could discriminate against, not having to, make this website for the same-sex couple. And so it's like, there's a little bit of a line there in terms of like, okay, they're giving the right for, I don't know, you can tell me, like a private business to discriminate. It's legal if you're a business, not legal if you're, the county clerk who is being asked to perform, or to certify a marriage. But yeah, I mean, that in terms of the chipping away at, but maybe, I don't know, give me your sense. Is that
Yeah,
seem,
and it's chipping away, and it's a big chip. Like
yeah,
that case is called 303 Creative. It is a really big chip to be able to say someone can walk into a store and they can be refused service, right?
yep,
I mean, that's just, we live our lives assuming that if we walk into a store, we can get a meal or a picture or whatever like the service is, right? And so there were like caveats about it. Like they didn't explicitly say like this also like applies to like racial minorities if,
right,
or this, this applies to literally every single business, right? So there, in that way, it was also like a chip because there are other pieces of this that are sort of like question marks now. But logically, there's really no way to cabin this off from the idea that business owners can simply say, like, it is my free speech to say that I do not endorse interracial couples. So interracial couples can't like buy my goods, right?
yep,
I mean, there's no like logical point where like 303 Creative ends and that kind of discrimination begins. So it is basically, in the 1960s, part of the Civil Rights Act was like, right? Like you don't have to, Black people don't have to sleep in their car when they're traveling because hotels have to serve them,
yep,
right? They don't have to like starve on a road trip because like restaurants have to serve them, right?
yeah.
Like this is like public accommodations laws are just basic civil rights laws to make sure that we are all equal citizens in this country. And that's what they're chipping away at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was huge. And so, and I appreciate you saying that it doesn't mean that they're out of the goodness of their heart. They were just like, nah, we don't like this case. But it's not to say they wouldn't reconsider same-sex marriage in the future if it were, again, astroturfed in the right way or brought under a different circumstance. I want to talk about the, the attacks on like cities, basically, the from the executive branch, the president attacking mostly blue cities, um in the form of ICE and border patrol and of course the National Guard. A federal judge ruled that the National Guard deployment to Portland was illegal. That happened. Right now a lower court is blocking the National Guard from being sent into Chicago, and Trump is like freaking out about it, saying there has to be an emergency stay request. Again, the shadow docket stuff. I'm assuming that's part of the shadow docket, to be like,
Yep.
no, 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 no. We really need to send in the National Guard to Chicago. It's insane. We have to tear gas more babies. And like the Solicitor General is now asking the Supreme Court to step in and say, yeah, like let us do this. What the hell? Will the Supreme Court allow this? How are they factoring in like posse comitatus? Like, again, this is the same Supreme Court that allowed basically any president to be above the law. So I don't even know what the point of the Supreme Court is anyway. But give me your read on specifically this insane attack on so many cities around this country.
Yeah. So this is a pretty complicated situation.
Yeah.
But here are some things going on. So yes, first of all, the judge in Oregon, who notably was a Trump appointee during his first term, Trump went in and basically was like, we can't execute the laws with the regular forces. And by the way, put a pin in the term regular forces. That's going to come back.
Yes.
So we can't do it. And also like there's a rebellion brewing because of these protests. And so
there's a frog rebellion.
Right. And the judge said, she just looked at the facts on the ground and said, this is untethered to the facts. Like it's just not what is actually going on. there is no evidence of rebellion. So, and you seem to be able to execute the laws just fine. So you actually don't need the National Guard. So that will get appealed up, and that's in the Ninth Circuit. So I assume that the administration will quickly, if they haven't already, appeal that to the Ninth Circuit. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's the Chicago cases. They are similarly, the Trump administration is saying, you know, there's like a rebellion brewing and we can't like do this with the regular forces. So you got to go, they go into the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court gets this Chicago petition. And I have to say, like, I just don't think that the justices actually want to be the one deciding this. Like, this is not, I just have to like sort of politically for the court. Like, they obviously want to give Trump whatever he wants as much as possible. And they also don't want it to be called like a Roberts invasion, right? Or an Alito invasion, right? Like,
right.
I don't think like that's what you know, they didn't like really join the court to like start sending the Texas National Guard into Illinois. So
I feel like Alito would think that's kind of tight, though. I feel like he'd be like, yes.
Okay, I don't want to speak for all of them, but broadly.
Yeah.
All right. So, and this is where it really, like, this is a little nerdy, but I think your viewers might find this fun. There's a brilliant professor and former Justice Department official at Georgetown Law School, and he files an amicus brief in this case, and he says, regular forces doesn't mean what the administration says it means. They're saying, oh, we can't like enforce the laws with the regular forces, meaning the civilian forces, meaning ICE officers or the Federal Protective Service. So we need to call in the National Guard. And this professor, his name is Marty Lederman, he writes this amicus brief going, the history of this statute, that they've invoked, and all of the references to the term regular forces around that and for decades afterwards, including by the Supreme Court, it just is 100% definitely a reference to the military. So basically what the statute says is if you need help enforcing the laws, you have to bring in the military. And then if the military can't do it, then you can bring in the National Guard.
Interesting. And Trump's probably like, hell yeah.
Like,
no.
He was basically giving the Supreme Court a way to like send this case back down on a technicality and not sort of become the face of like Trump's invasions here.
Yes.
So
but don't tempt them, because I'm saying, like, if Stephen Miller gets word that first you need to send in the actual military, like, okay, and then the National Guard, fine.
I mean, you've hit on a real concern here, right? So the Supreme Court, I have to say, is intrigued because they told the parties, can you please file supplemental briefs about this point that Marty Lederman made about the meaning of regular forces? So I think they are very much intrigued by basically saying, let's throw this out on technicality or send it back down and say, like, work this out otherwise.
Yeah.
But your point is well taken. The fear is that if they take away this statutory authority that Trump has claimed, then Trump will say, I guess I'm just going to have to send them in the military. I'll have to use the Insurrection Act, which is not subject to posse comitatus, which is the restriction on the military using the military to enforce civilian law, to do law enforcement.
So that's why they like the Insurrection Act.
Yes, it's the Insurrection Act is a dangerous law that enables a situation that is really at odds with a democracy. On the other hand, the preconditions for invoking the Insurrection Act are much more restrictive. So because it's such an awesome power, the preconditions for what is necessary for invoking it and sending in the military are much tougher. So I think the reason that the Trump administration is using the statutory authority that it is claimed to is that it's a lower bar for, what would allow them to send in troops. So
regular forces.
Yeah. So pay attention to that term. So I think it's possible at this point that the justices are going to say, like, this needs to go back to the district court and they need to evaluate other parts of this law because like this particular part doesn't work, and just sort of try to drag this out because they don't really want to deal with it. But
the thing is about the Supreme Court is like, even, and if it, I always feel like I mean, we have to pay attention to them, but every time they do something that seems good, I'm like, don't draw attention to it, because then they'll like knee jerk react, and be like, "Nuh-uh, I actually hate civil rights," ultimately. I actually love the military and communities. Um, because if this decision comes down and they do punt it or they don't rule on it, like, I'm sure people will, it's good. But as you're mentioning, it might just be a technicality that, yeah, that they just kind of don't want to be the ones to put their names on it. They want it. And actually, speaking on that, let's talk about tariffs, because this is another thing that puts the Supreme Court in a very awkward bind, because the conservatives love serving capital, they love serving business, but they also love serving Donald Trump. And tariffs right now are crushing businesses. And like, now they're going to be ruling on whether or not it is legal for the president to use basically an emergency powers to slap these tariffs on many countries. And not have it go through Congress, which is, again, the body that controls things like tariffs. So just give me your sense on that, because it seems like that's going to maybe split the conservatives, maybe not work out in Trump's favor.
Yeah, I think I agree with your reading on this case, which is so fascinating, both legally, but also just when you think about the parties here that have stakes in this case. So I have written and believe that this case should really not be understood as like Trump versus like the voices of freedom, right? Like, this is actually Trump and the MAGA wing of the GOP who want to just be able to use the economy as part of like a personalist authoritarian rule, and the sort of plutocratic billionaire titans of industry, Koch brothers wing of the party, because literally, like, the sort of Koch funded and groups brought this case, right? So there's literally like the people who put their millions and billions behind putting John Roberts and Alito and Barrett and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch on the court,
where they are,
yeah. Same people whose groups are now saying, wait a minute, this tariff thing is taxes. We hate taxes. We don't like this controlling our businesses. This is no way to run an economy. And then on the other side, you have Trump saying, this is exactly how I want to run the economy. Thank you very much. So yeah, I mean, I've argued that if Trump loses, he'll really be winning. Or conversely, that if, bear with me, conversely, in ruling against Trump, if the justices do, they will be doing him a favor. Because if they say, sure, go ahead, you have the power to just tariff whenever you want. You don't like an ad that Canada plays on the World Series, go ahead and like tariff them some more. Someone like, sneezes at you, like tariff them, go ahead, like give a waiver to this company, give a waiver to that company, right? Like, Trump is going to make prices go up. He's going to make the economy suck. And
already is.
That's bad for Trump, and it's bad for the Republican coalition more broadly, right? Because if you're the party in power and you want to keep winning elections, you want the economy to be strong. And I think it is actually really important that they heard oral arguments literally hours after the elections on last Tuesday, in which Zoran Mondani won in New York, Mike Sherrill won in New Jersey, and Abigail Spanberger won in Virginia, and they all ran on affordability and cost of living. And here's Trump being like, I just want to be able to do tariffs to infinity, right? And they're sitting here being like, are you sure you want that power? You might lose elections.
Yep.
So I do think that, there are interesting questions of law that I could totally nerd out on, but I do think this is a question of political power.
Sure. And it's almost like the one body he would listen to or could listen to, because he's so stubborn about them, and no one around him can tell him anything. So it's like, okay, well, if the Supreme Court gives him this little out, he can be like, well, I wanted to do the tariffs, but the Supreme Court, like, it wouldn't look like Trump, taco anymore or whatever the hell. Like,
I think that's mostly true, although there are other authorities he could use to do tariffs. I think he liked this authority, this particular law he was using called IEPA, or the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, something like that. He liked that one because it was sort of like he was pretending that it gave him like open-ended tariff power, right? But there are other more limited tariff authorities that he can use. So I would not say if Trump loses, don't be like tariff-free.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Got it. He'll find other ways.
I do think that there was probably 5 votes. We'll see what happens. I feel like there are probably 5 votes to at least restrict Trump's use of this law to go wild with tariffs. And I think, honestly, it'll be helping Trump.
Yeah. And we just put a finer point on that. Why does it help him? Because politically, this is killing him. That's what you mean.
Right. I mean, I think it helps him and the Republican Party do better in the midterms if prices aren't just sort of going like this.
Oh no, yeah.
He keeps doing tariffs and businesses can't invest, they can't hire, everything's uncertain, right? Even if he lowers tariffs one day, you can't just like go invest in stuff because you don't know what he's going to do the next day. So I think if you're thinking about the health of the economy and the political ramifications of that, then you're doing him a favor. Yeah.
This is so helpful and enlightening, and you're so clear, and I really appreciate it. And I have 2 more questions on the, on 2026 and 2028. Obviously, we've heard Steve Bannon not unjokingly say we're all going to prison if we lose in 2028, and also saying we're absolutely running Trump again. I'm not really, I guess I don't have questions about that because it's like, let's get there. But in terms of voting rights, and this case out of Louisiana, that could basically gut the Voting Rights Act, allowing, Louisiana maps to, disenfranchise Black voters. Explain that case and what that's looking like and what that could mean for 2026, 2028.
Yeah. So I just want to give like a headline here to really think about how radical this is, what's happening is right now. In 1965, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, and that is how we got a multiracial democracy. It meant that Black people could vote, and if they voted in sufficient numbers, they could elect someone that they actually wanted to elect.
Yep.
Right? In the last 10 plus years, the Roberts Court has dismantled that law piece by piece, and we're basically talking about the last piece that is really, truly in effect right now, that is really enforced right now. And if that falls, which I think it will, not only will it have ramifications across every level of society, from school boards to city councils to Congress, right? But it will immediately probably shift up to 19 seats in Congress towards Republicans in the 2026 midterms. So just the basic stakes here are multiracial democracy, short-term 2026 elections. So
by 2026, I mean, that's how quickly maps could be redrawn. That's how quickly something like this could effectuate.
Yes. It depends on when the justices rule. So if they want to do this fast, which they seem like they want to, they could issue an opinion December, January, and then the states rush to redraw their maps, and then they're good to go. If the justices take till June or something, then it's not going to be 2026, I don't think. So that's on the table, though. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So basically what happens—
Can a liberal justice slow walk it? Can they be like, oh no, I misplaced the brief?
I think to an extent, but not, by months, I would assume. Yeah. So Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act gives minority voters of color, the opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. And that doesn't just say oh, you're Black, you get a Black person in Congress. That's not how it works. It says basically you have to have enough people in this minority group. They have to be geographically cohesive in order to form a district, and they have to generally vote the same way, right? So it's really a specific voting block that is large, And then in that situation, they deserve a chance to elect a representative of their choice in the same way that white people do. Under this law, Louisiana was required by multiple federal courts to draw a second majority Black district in Louisiana. Then a group of white voters came along. They're called the non-Black voters.
Cool.
They came
Cool.
along
Good name.
and they said, this is racist against us because you carved up the maps to give Black people a voice. So this is actually like racial discrimination against us.
Yeah, we're just living in a so-called reverse racist regime, right? I mean, this is Stephen Miller's dream come true.
Yeah, it's basically saying the 14th Amendment protects and 15th Amendment, which were enacted during Reconstruction to give political equality to Black people, should actually be used to take political equality away from Black people. That's what they're arguing. The justices seem pretty open to this at oral argument. They didn't all frame it this way. A few of them did. A few of them were like into literally that. A few of them, I think they prefer to maybe not fully strike it down as unconstitutional, but to basically say that legislatures, the body that draws the map, if it's I presume like the city council or the county commissioners or whoever it is, they can draw the map for partisan gain. And if it just so happens that means Black people don't get a district or Latinos don't get a district, then so be it, because it's just that, the right of minorities to have a voice in our political system comes second after the right of political parties to gerrymander. So that's, you don't want to predict too hard, but that's what I think is going to happen. And I think it's going
the rights of political parties to gerrymander take precedent over the rights of minorities, people of color, to access democracy, to participate fully in the democracy.
That is the argument that the Trump administration took to the court. That is what the Deputy Solicitor General argued. And I think that some of the justices were pretty smitten with that argument. And I know, I feel like
So, I mean, and this is what I feel like when, you hear like, oh, I don't know, Prop 50 and gerrymandering, and fighting fire with fire. Do we really want to do this? And like, I have qualms on that broad principle of like, I ultimately believe the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house, but I absolutely believe that gerrymandering 5 more districts in California to fight what is coming down, not just from the Supreme Court, but from other state legislatures like Texas and whatnot. Like, this is important. That's why things like Prop 50 matter. Yeah.
And I think it's also important, like, you don't want to think about the Supreme Court that much, right? But like, the only reason this is happening is because the Supreme Court said in 2019 that if you want to gerrymander for partisan gain, you can do that and federal courts can't review it. So the only reason Texas can go tear up their map and tear up a bunch of minority districts in the process and then redraw it the way Trump wants is because the Supreme Court said you can do that, right? So the whole reason any of these states are like doing this, for the most part, as long as they're not like, is that the Supreme Court said it's not justiciable. If you want to do something for partisan gain, we're not even going to like review it. So the Roberts Court put this in motion.
This is fucking wild. Like, it's that is wild. And awful and terrifying. And oh my God. Yeah, I don't know what to say other than oh my God. And I mean, these are the things that the movement that they hail from, and the like broad goal of Christian nationalism is to destroy the Voting Rights Act, is to roll back the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Act. I mean, this is part of the broad project. This is what Charlie Kirk was on and on about. I mean, we're going back. We're going back before the Civil Rights Movement. We're going back, yes, to Reconstruction times. Last thing, and only because it's small, because it feels like it may be irrelevant in a couple days, but because the shutdown may be ending soon, possibly, and SNAP benefits to 42 million people may be restored, which is a silver and very important lining to all this, even though there's worse things coming down the pike. But SNAP benefits being fully funded are all caught up in the court. Trump, states sued the Trump administration for withholding the SNAP benefits. Some of them have been dispersed. Trump has been basically in defiance of a judge that ruled that they all have to be paid out in full. Like, what are we, I mean, again, I don't even, like, it's so complicated to me, and just like so many words and so many legal proceedings to deny people the right to food when their money exists right now. Your thoughts?
Yes, it is extremely complicated. I think from the Supreme Court's vantage point, similar to the National Guard situation in blue cities, I think even more than that, the justices really don't want to be the ones to cut off food to 42 million Americans. Like, you don't want like the Roberts famine, right?
Right.
like you really don't want that, right? And so I think,
well, but you putting it out there like this, the title of the podcast will be the Roberts famine. So you've already wished into existence.
No, I mean, you're right. They haven't done it yet, right? So I think that on the one hand, as we talked about, sort of coming full circle with the passport case, like, they really just want to let the president do whatever he wants and feel that it is a grave injury to the president if he doesn't get to immediately do whatever he wants. On the other hand, I don't think they really want this one on their hands, and they really do think that Congress should figure this out. So if the shutdown is not ended tomorrow, I think you're going to see the Supreme Court pause those lower court orders, but probably not like indefinitely. Like, I think that they want to put pressure on Congress, on the president, to figure this out, because they don't want to have to handle this. I mean, man, if the shutdown doesn't end though, and the justices really are put in a position to figure this out, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to see that they still care, like that they still even care about public opinion at all. I mean, I thought they long threw that to the wind, years and years and years ago, but it's nice to know they care, that these 9 unelected justices who have control over every aspect of our lives have a little bit of fear in their hearts. I think that's a good place to be, in a so-called democracy. And so, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and they shouldn't. And the only reason they are being faced with these cases is because there's pushback. There are lawsuits, right? That states are suing the Trump administration. So, it is beneficial ultimately to mount these kinds of, this defense, and gum up the works, because, yeah, you are kind of laying bare this immense power that they have.
Yeah, I do. I do also think that I think that the Trump administration messed up so much that, if anything, they might even force the Supreme Court, if it comes to it, to side against them, because by giving the states conflicting information. So basically, a federal judge said, you got to fund SNAP in full. So then they sent guidance to the states going like, okay, we're going to abide by this, prepare to fund SNAP in full. Then they got a short-term pause from the Supreme Court, from Justice Jackson. So then they turned around and said, actually, never mind, don't send out the money. But a bunch of states, and they're almost all Democratic-run states, said, oh, too late. We're feeding our people. And they said, no, take that back. So you have a weird situation where millions of people in blue states are now, I believe, receiving these benefits, and millions of people in red states aren't. And there's not, I don't think, an easy legal way to just take that money back from the people you've given it to. And so I think that puts every court into a really difficult situation, because I don't think they can easily say, take the money off of those EBT cards, right? And on the other hand, you don't want a situation where half of the country, gets their SNAP benefits and the other half doesn't. And so I think that because of how this was handled, that is when I think that might just be facts that the Supreme Court can't deal with. And so I think, again, I think probably the shutdown ends and moots the whole thing.
Which is why, but that's a perfect example of why the shutdown strategy for Democrats was winning, because of this limbo with something as important as SNAP benefits and making this, conservative court look like they were also in cahoots with Donald Trump and that it was an emergency to stop feeding people. I mean, again, it's just like that. It was all politically working out, so long as planes stay in the sky.
Yeah, I mean,
we
it
just-
really was like a
Mhm.
show me your true colors moment, right? They created that kind of a moment.
Oh,
And
boy.
and Trump said, I'll show you. I don't want to
I'll
feed
show
people.
you. Ballroom, Great Gatsby party, 42 million people without food. Did Ketanji Brown Jackson voting or like staying the decision, that was to help gum it up? What's explain that again?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like whatever sort of calculus she has in her head, she didn't exactly put on the page, so it's all guesses, right?
Okay. Okay.
That said, what I have read and what makes sense to me is that if this was also like Friday night, basically before what is kind of a long weekend, she basically was like, if I don't stay this, my colleagues are going to step in and stay it. And then it will probably be this sort of indefinitely long stay, right?
Mm.
So, like, but if I stay it for 48 hours after the First Circuit rules, I can basically put pressure on the First Circuit, because this is all like so complicated, right? At the time that she ruled, everyone was waiting on the First Circuit to rule. So she was basically, the Trump administration kind of leapfrogged the First Circuit to try to get her and the justices, her colleagues, to stay it without waiting for the First Circuit. So she was basically like, if I don't stay it, my colleagues are going to jump in and do it.
And they can stay it for a longer time.
Right. So she did 48 hours. And that clock started after the First Circuit ruled. So she put pressure on the First Circuit to like hurry up. And then she put pressure on everyone else to try to come to a resolution. So her order actually, if I'm reading everything correctly, is going to run out tonight.
Mm.
But again, because of the shutdown possibly ending, it will sort of not matter. But I think that her calculus was like, I'm going to just pause this order, which means pausing SNAP benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But she probably thought it was the best way to move this case forward in a productive way.
Got it. Okay. Final question, but it's kind of a big one. Do you think the Trump administration cares about following the law and obeying the Supreme Court? You kind of got inklings of it during the, the Kilmar Abrego Garcia stuff, and them bending over backwards to say, no, we didn't get the order to not, to not remove him until after, when that was a clear lie. What do you think?
I think they care about the appearance of following the Supreme Court. And so I think if they defy the Supreme Court, it'll be on something they really care about. Because I think that appearance works well for them.
Sure.
And I think that the Supreme Court is also aware that part of the administration following their orders is that they understand that the court will generally agree with them. And that they only have, again, I'm surmising here, obviously, that they only have so many times they can defy Trump before Trump says, screw you, I'm doing it anyways. And so but I do think that is sort of, as people have said, it is a Rubicon, right? I'm not going to say that's a constitutional crisis. I think we're in one of those, but I think that it is a Rubicon to outright defy the Supreme Court. And so, and it is like, it's political.
Well, we'll cross it. Don't worry. We'll cross it.
So I do think they care about the appearance of following.
Sure. I mean, it's the way that they care about free and fair elections, the appearance of free and fair elections, even though they may destroy the Voting Rights Act, right? It's that appearance that, I think, these days autocrats need. Vladimir Putin needs the appearance of free and fair elections, and on and on and on. Pema Levy, how complete, how excellent, how clear. I really appreciate this. I can see why you were a staff writer at Mother Jones, and thank you for explaining it all. Where can people find you, follow your work?
Yeah, I mean, motherjones.com. And I'm on Blue Sky at Pema Levy. So either of those two places.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Please come back again. We'll need it, and take good care. Thank you all for being here as well. That was excellent. And thanks for your questions. Vetras Varna also. Is Kentanji delaying so that the First Circuit has time to declare tariffs illegal? Maybe. I didn't get a chance to ask Pema. I'm sorry. But I think we got a pretty good explanation for, possibly thwarting worse actions by her colleagues. B. Grackold says, is there any kind of check on stare decisis? Is there any kind of legal mechanism for the courts to say we really screwed this up previously? Shit, dude, I should have had Pema back on for that. I don't know. We're gonna have to blue sky at her. And then Miss Felony Strutter says, thank you from this trans girl and for being a show on the left that actually talks about rulings that hurt the trans community. Many don't. You're welcome. I wish we could talk about it more, but I think that was, it's true. This has been the project of the right. They think it's not going to come for them. And of course, as Laverne Cox says, we're focused on the wrong 1%, just in general. And so what the fuck is what's the pushback? What's the pushback from Democrats? Where is the line for Democrats as rights for Americans are being taken away, completely stripped, taken away? Discrimination is legal. It's like, and again, it doesn't even have to be, the trans community is a lot smaller than, let's say, people with uteruses who don't have rights to an abortion across this country. Our fighters suck. How about that? Our fighters suck. Now the Zen said Harris Buttigieg reference is more likely her reminding everyone Pete is too gay to vote, so vote for her in the primary. Too gay to vote for. Yes. No, the whole Buttigieg thing was so also if you wanted Buttigieg, pick Buttigieg. It's so awful to be like, well, who's going to vote for a black woman and a gay man? I don't know. A lot of people. I would. Not my favorite ticket, but the assumption that people would be too afraid or that your identities prevent you from actually standing for something is just so pathetic to me. It's such a point of weakness. Rachel Atwood, Nicki's always been a GOP Christian nationalist about Nicki Minaj, indeed. Also excited about Working Families Party in Massachusetts popping off. So everyone in mass, holler. And yes, we need to out Schumer ASAP. Mount a challenge. Now, the Zen, thank you for your super chat. It's not an accident. Dems screwed the pooch, probably figuratively, but who knows? Following progressive wins by Mamdani and polling boost by Trump's incompetence, Republicans are their friends. Look, this is what's wrong with the Senate in general. I don't think that Sanders will mount a challenge to Schumer because he's his friend. There's only 100 of them. They work together all the time. It's why Bernie didn't go harder at Biden in the primary, to be honest with you, in that very, very pivotal debate. These people have been in power for too long. They have outsized power. They are not representative. And yeah, they are friends at the end of the day. And they definitely serve the same corporate masters, sadly. Bernie less so, of course, but you know what I'm saying. The Farmigans on Twitch can't afford rent, let alone healthcare. This is exactly where most people are at. They're looking at the healthcare costs and going like, you're telling me my healthcare costs are the cost of my rent? That's how expensive people's premiums are. That's how much they are going up by. Crash Nova on YouTube, they folded because they didn't want to actually put up the messaging fight over food stamps, even though Trump was making it an easy layup. I think that Pema rounded that out, right? It was very clear, that it was becoming just this mess, a legal mess, a moral mess. No food stamps and no air travel during Thanksgiving. Come on. This is a total layup, as you just said. And Prism Pyre says, why do y'all feel so hopeless when you see how terrified Steve Bannon is right now? It's true. It's true. Steve Bannon being a little afraid to go to jail was actually kind of we have to remember that despite everything, that 2026 and 2028 matter a lot, and we've got to redouble our efforts. Hey, some thank yous while we do the fart song in the background, people. Here we go. Anyone can be a patron at $10 or more and get this shout out during the fart song. Thank you on Substack to John K, to Heidi B, to Jay Fa, to Joe S for being paid members. That's awesome. Thank you over on Twitch to Moose Not Mooses for subscribing. Thank you also to who else? Oh, to Jagger08 Larson for gifting a sub. Appreciate you. Onyx Squared also resubscribed. And thank you to all y'all who've given super chats, all the members, all the patrones, all the people who don't deserve. I don't know. You deserve that flatulence. Thank you to Paige Omek, to Andy Visoyan, and to Brent Godin, the lovely, lovely Brent Godin, who has been helping me with these deep dives. Also, with your patronage, you guys get access to the postscripts for the deep dives. And oh boy, there will be a big postscript on the next one as I get back to work. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Actually, a Friday show. I have a special unannounced guest for the Friday show. So until then, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it, be about it. Bye.